All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It is officially, well, it's like 1:59, but we're going to say it's 2. I kind of wanted to get started a little early today because this week has been busy. Today's busy. I'm kind of tired and exhausted, but that's not why you're here. You're here to learn, well, really hear me yap about Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Mas, specifically chapters 10 and 11. I have a book club that I'm running, and we are currently reading this book. By the end of this month, I'll have 4 lives up where people can kind of come in and see what my opinions are based on certain chapters. So, this live, we're going to talk about chapters 10 and 11. Before we get into that, I did take a couple notes from so last chapter I talked about was chapter 5. So we have a gap. We have 5 chapter gap basically from chapter 5 to chapter 10. So I do want to just quickly review what happens in the main things that happen in each of those chapters. So in chapter 6, so she is officially. Yes. Okay. So in chapter 6, she's healing from the crucible. She just got out of the stadium. Patra and Achilles took her to their home or whatever. She fainted and she's healing. And while during her healing stages, she goes in and out between having nightmares and being awake. She hears whispering. She sees death, which we'll figure out later is an actual character. Um, there's creatures, there's howling. She learns that Achilles and Patro sometimes communicate in sign language. And when they do it, they're asking if they should kill the doctors because the doctors now know that Alexis is, as they would say, weak and that she has a history of being weak because she has a bunch of fractured and broken bones from the past in the foster care system where she was abused. All of that. So we learn all of that in chapter 6. Chapter 7, Patrick and Achilles are like, all right, so what's your power? What do you bring to the table that could possibly be good for us? And she's like, well, nothing. As far as I know, I have no power. I'm pretty much useless. And Alexis hates life. So it's not hard for her to be like, I'm useless. Like she did very much is like, I don't have anything for you. So Patra and Achilles like, do you even know anything? Well, more like Patra, because Achilles doesn't really talk. He has a muzzle on his face that only Patra has the key to, and they have a certain bond situation. And Achilles is the one who uses sign language because again, he can't talk because his power, his dark power, comes from his voice. And so they don't want to have that walking around without a muzzle on and all things. But anyway, um, they Patcher hands Alexis 2 books about the crucible so she can learn. And she's kind of like, great. So this I'm basically gonna die in this because what the crucible's for is to take um Spartan mutts and make them immortal, tough in both mentality, spiritually, physically, all things, and help them become immortal, basically. In chapter 8, the crucible officially starts, so she gets teleported from Patro and Achilles' house to the crucible. And the crucible takes place in like a mountain, basically. And she has to be in this mountain. She studies, she has 3 mentors, and we learn that 2 of the mentors are have synthotic so sorry, I cannot pronounce this word. I need to look up how to pronounce it, but they have synthotic powers. So they're part of the whole dark power clan. They fight titans and do the things. Augustus is hot. In my imagination, he's hot. And he is a thing, but we don't really find out about him in chapter 8. I'm kind of getting my head self here. But anyway, in chapter 8, we find out that 2 of the professors this year are going to be synthetics. They, Alexis runs the circuit for the first time and nearly dies. But in chapter 9, when she runs the circuit again, or maybe it's in the first time, some of my notes got a little haphazard here. But she is swimming in the river, and one of the participants, because there's 10 participants in this crucible, she's the only girl. She's the only girl in 100 years, too, for this entire, like, not even just the crucible, just being in this realm of Spartans and all of that. So she's the only girl in this crucible. There's 10 participants, and we lose one in like the first round of the circuit. They get into the river, they're swimming, and Charon is the hunter of the swimming part of the circuit. And part of the circuit is they have to run up a mountain like barefoot. They have to swim through the river, Styx, Stinks, however you pronounce it, it's Styx, and do a bunch of other things. But he's on a boat in the river, and he will kill you if you don't move your butt. And so she's trying to swim. The curly haired boy that she met, who was trying to be super positive, like, rah, rah, we got this, is behind her. And she sees Karen is like coming. She's like, you gotta go, you gotta swim. But dude is like suddenly struggling to breathe. He's got foam happening out of his mouth. He's like drowning, and she's trying to save him. And Karen is right there. She's like, oh my God, he's killing him. And the boy drowns. She keeps swimming, and she's like, traumatized pretty much because she just saw someone die on the first day, and she thinks that the big guy in the boat did it. And so that happens in chapter 9. The other thing we find out in chapter 9 is we hear a lot more voices whispering to her, like in the corner of the cave classroom. She hears whispering. She's not sure where she's from. And as somebody who's not very confident in herself, she doesn't really like life. She doesn't want to be here. She's not sure why she's here. She's kind of like, oh, great, I'm already hallucinating. That's fantastic. She's like, she's so not in it that she's easily persuaded that like she's already hallucinating and having a hard time, which makes sense because this is like a very physically grueling test. So, yeah. Okay, now we get to the fun stuff. Chapter 10. So chapter 10, we start with Charon's point of view, the big guy in the big bow who killed the boy, or did he? Because we find out in chapter 10 that somehow, some way, he thinks Alexis did it. So, in chapter 10, we also find out that Charon, and this is like placed a few hours earlier before some of this stuff happens with the river, the circuit, all of it. We find out though that him and the rest of his synthetic people, friends, and family, so we know for a fact that they've been assigned to take out the Titans. That was something mentioned way early on in this book, as their punishment for trying to do a war on the Olympians. Well, he specifically, but he says, like, we all actually enjoy this because it helps hone our capabilities and makes us more prepared. So that gives us some kind of foreshadowing or warning that at some point in time, there's going to be some kind of war or battle or something where he feels the need or the others feel the need to be prepared. So we see that foreshadowing a little bit. So that's kind of exciting. Um, the other thing that we find out too is and I think it happened before this, but he's like not all man. He's got beast in him. It's like he's big, super freaking tall, like gigantic. Okay. It's like a literal half beast situation. And yeah, I mean, he's hot too. They're all hot. And I can't not tell you they're not hot, but you're probably like, Marissa, how could you know that? They're not even real. But they are. To us readers, they are. They're in our heads. And he's hot. Um, but he's like, the Olympians call me many names. They call me insomniac, sociopath, hunter, killer, and all of them are true. And he seems to have a lot of anxiety. We also find out about his protector animals, which are Hell and Hound. Augustus's is a raccoon. Um, and his are like basically hellhounds. He just decided to name them what they are, which is Hell and Hound. And he can only see them. He can only make them visible to people. Like they are not just randomly visible to people. Most of the time they're very invisible. So keep that in mind. Um, then we continue on. Bum bum bum. And then we see a line here. It was like, it was her again. Again, where did you see this girl before? He's talking about Alexis Hurt in the river when he's on the boat. And this is where we are. And he's doing his point of view when he was on the boat and she was swimming in the river and the boy died. I think his name was Christos. And he's like talking about and remembering being the dude who attended to Alexis when she was passed out at Patro and Achilles trying to heal because she was like, I saw death. Death was Charon here with his little obsessive and possessiveness. And so he's like, I'm so excited because I'm not normally interested in anything, but she has caught my interest. So we already know that there's a slight attraction, if not obsession, that's happening and starting to take place with Charon. So that's kind of exciting. It's exciting. And he's like, it went beyond her physical appearance, which resembled a wild thing. So he's like already starting to have some kind of very strong magnetic pull there. So that's kind of nice to see. And he kind of also points out how the how the fuck did she survive the massacre? She looks like she's been starved. So it's like, and he notices that she looks weak and breakable, that she has gangly limbs and wide innocent eyes. She looks naive, and both of his animal protectors are also fixated on her, and he calls her charisma. Which is also another hint that he was the death that she thought that she saw when she was having nightmares back in chapter 6 or 7 or one of those chapters. So she's doing all the things there. Karen's doing all the things here, and he lets out that Alexis is killing the boy in the river. And we're at this point, we don't know how that's happening because she doesn't have a power, right? But she doesn't have a power, then how is she killing this kid? So it's like, all right. But her doing that, or him perceiving her as doing that, makes him call dibs on her. Mm, And he has a euphoria from this. He ends up finishing the job of killing the boy, though, and he lets his own power flow into the boy's head and he dies. But he's like, glory be to Kronos. Thank you for delivering this exquisite creature to me like a lamb for a slaughter. And that's kind of where we end on Kronos's, not, oh my God, Karen's point of view. Him being wildly interested in Alexis, him getting off on the fact that she was somehow killing this dude, even though she doesn't have a power, and him just being all into it. Okay, then in chapter 11, we learn a little bit more about Professor Augustus. So his animal protector is a raccoon. Um, and Alexis hates birds. That's super random compared to what I just said. But the general who has like the whole main situation under control, he has a bird. It's a hawk, squawk, or whatever. And she hates birds. She talks many times about how she hates birds, about how one of her neighbors back in the human world um, was a conspiracy theorist and was like, they're just government spies. And so she kind of agreed with him and hates birds. Or she's like, they're just a little weird. And so she hates birds. And she's talking about that. Professor Augustus is talking about discipline and power. His raccoon Poco is playing with his ponytail. And she's like, oh, it's so cute. Someone should take a picture. Um, but in here, she also gets shamed by him. It becomes very clear that Augustus, at least in chapter 11, has some type of hatred or disgust with Alexis, and it's mostly because of the fact that she's a woman participating in this crucible. He has a thing about protecting women in his own way, and one of them is not allowing them to participate in a crucible. He has a younger sister who he's very protective of, and he just does not he's like, if a woman is an heiress, and she participates in the crucible, it's considered dishonorable. And he says that as he's looking at Alexis, basically like, you're dishonorable, you're disgusting, why are you here? Like, do you know how this is impacting other people? And she's kind of like, I didn't choose to be here. I literally got dragged from my school building to fight in that random 100 people, only 10 make it out alive. Then I got teleported from there to Patron Achilles' house where they treat me like crap. Then they transported me here. None of it was a choice. But of course, Augustus isn't thinking like that. And kind of went, before Augustus gets hot and attractive, I kind of just want to punch him a little bit. I want to punch a lot of these guys, actually, because while they do grow on me as the story continues, because I read this before, so I kind of know I just like rereading it, and I figured this would be a good first book anyway. My point is, as we continue reading, they get a little bit more understanding, and by the time of the end, it's like, okay, we have a little bit more understanding, which is great. But in these first few chapters, not few, in this first at least half of this book, they all seem to just like think that Alexis is weak. She can't handle herself. She can't hold her own, and that like she's just a stupid human who, well, she's not stupid to him, that she's a stupid, like, Olympian. He's a part of Zeus's house because everyone thinks she's a part of Zeus's house. Well, at least Patra and Achilles do, and so does Zeus himself. And it's like, dude, she was abused her entire childhood by foster parents and other people in her school building and by the system that you all set up. And now you're mad at her for ending up with fractured bones and broken souls and like why? And you're not even asking, you're just like, and I just want to them. Anyway, in chapter 11 here, she kind of just is unfazed by the shame that Augustus is trying to bring to her and humiliate her because she's like, I have no honor. So like I don't know what you're trying to do here, but it's not gonna work. And so he does all of that. And then Augustus is talking about things that they are going to learn. The first is immortality. Second is enhanced intelligence. Third is leaping or teleportation across the globe. And she gets teleported multiple times using the word domus, something like that, with between Patra and Achilles and the guards earlier in the story. They also learn about the animal protectors. Every single one of them is going to have to end up with an animal protector. If they don't, they fail. Um, and if an animal, we also find out that if an animal does not agree to bond or see something the soul doesn't like, your mind will boil from the inside out and it will kill you, and they will have to kill you so that you get put out of your misery. So it sounds kind of horrid to find an animal that you can bond with and have just pure good intentions, maybe. You know? Um, and then it's like meditation time. So they meditate, they do the things, take notes. They're going through this whole classroom situation. In this classroom situation, so they're in a cave and their professors come in and out to teach the subjects. They all stay in their seats and their assigned seating, but the cave doesn't have any comfy chairs. They're like sitting on the stone, like it's meant to be a very uncomfortable situation so that they get a grasp on how to be strong through mental, physical, spiritual toughness. And um Alexis is like having like a mid panic attack situation. And she's like, "Can I use the bathroom?" And Augustus is like, all right, go. But like, I'm not going to give you special treatment because you're a girl. Cough, cough. I think he in the end probably will. So she goes to the bathroom. She's like having a panic. She's like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot live this way. I didn't sign up for this. And her snake there, Nyx, is like, girl, you are the strongest person I know. Like, you're gonna get, if anyone can get through this, it's you. Like, you're gonna get through this. Do it for Charlie, who's still at home, younger brother. And she's like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. So they get in there, they do the circuit. She's bleeding from her feet. Like the circuit's not fun for anyone, especially for her. She's slow. She's the slowest of the group. Her feet are bleeding. She's like feels like something's stalking her, even though it's not. She's just having a moment. So she gets done with the circuit, and um Karen glares at her. She gets on the riverbank. There's foil blankets, but she's too tired to grab one. So Augustus, shocking turn of events, takes one and wraps it around her. Like he actually cares. Then the other thing he does is he gives her a cup of water. And when I mean gives her, I mean he shoves that thing down her throat. Like he's got her whole like chin grab situation, okay? Harsh chin grab situation, like hot chin grab situation. Tilts it up. She takes the water and opens her mouth and is like, "You need to drink your water." Basically, there's no words really. I'm just adding those words in there. And she tries to get out of the grass because she's like, it's too much water. Like it's just a stressful situation. And he's like, he does not let her go till she finishes all of the water. And so, seeing that bit, you're like, all right, Augustus doesn't entirely hate her because if he did, he wouldn't have done those things that seem a little protective. Mm, mm, mm. And then it's kind of funny because they go back to the classroom and they are doing stuff, but she starts talking out loud about Augustus, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, do you know you're talking out loud?" And it gets funnier because he says something about girls dishonoring the crucible, like the book says, and she's just like, "Preach, girlfriend," and he's just like, what is wrong with you? Like, just calm down, bro. Just calm down. And she's, like, hysterical at this point. She's like, "Will do, captain." And she adds, like, a beached whale, and she's like, "Don't worry, the tide will put you back in." She's, like, on the ground just like and she makes a whale sound. I can just imagine the scene and how funny it is, and honestly, I might have to act it out at one point because it's just too funny. Um, and he did not match her energy, and she's like, "This is why I don't talk to people." And anyway, she's truly hysterical at this point and all the things, and she gets up to go do things. And yes, so they're given a short break to go back to the library. She starts walking out, but Augustus stops her in the hall, and asks, "Are you all right, Alexis? If a man truly hates you, why would he ask if you're okay?" Now, don't get me wrong, I acknowledge that both Augustus and Karen have their issues, but most morally gray book boyfriends do. So I'm just saying, if he really didn't like her and hated her and all things, he wouldn't care about her well being. Attraction is blooming. And she's just like, she's hysterical, she's lucid, like she's having a moment. And she's just like, "Who is this all right that you speak of?" Like, it's just funny. And he kinda just glares at her, and she's just like, "Keep your secrets." And then they just don't talk again here. And, then poof, it's time for them to go home and get a break before they come back again for another couple weeks of the Crucible. And so people come back, she's hearing noise, she's like someone's, like, asking her if she's okay. Um She's like, "I haven't been okay for years," and they're like, "Interesting. She's telling the truth, but none of us have been." And then she calls somebody a dog, and yeah. Then the chapter 11 ends with her being taken back by Patro and Achilles to their home base for her to rest up for a few days, and she's gonna get thrown right back into the Crucible. So this is good stuff to know. So basically, where we're at right now, she just completed her first 2 weeks of the Crucible. She's now back at Patron Achilles' home base. She's going to heal, and she's going to go back to the Crucible, and this is basically what's going to happen here. And so that's what I got for reviewing chapters 10 and 11, along with the context. Next week, we'll go over more chapters. I should know which ones, but my brain's having a moment because I'm tired. And so that's what I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching the recording or coming to the live. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Mwah.